Marvel, Hela's husband breaks the universe. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 81, General Ross Ambition, Tony's Misunderstanding, Part 1. 3 months have passed since the war in New York City. During these 3 months, the reconstruction of New York City went very well. With the efforts of countless construction companies, a brand new New York City was rebuilt in 3 months' time. The technological standard of the Marvel world should not be doubted, they have very strong infrastructure capability. However, although New York was restored to its original state, no one would forget the tragic battle 3 months ago. According to the post-battle statistics, at least more than 100,000 lives were lost in that great battle. It was a very terrible number that deeply stung everyone. Even today, 3 months later, there were still mass movements everywhere in the United States. All countries began to urgently research various secret weapons, hoping to be able to face the alien invasion next time, to be more at ease. Many secret projects that had been abandoned by the military were brought back to the table at this time. For example, Super Soldier 2.0 project. Ever since the abomination made a big mess in Los Angeles, General Ross has suffered a low point in his military career. He almost ended up in court and in jail because of the Hulk. Although he finally used his enormous connections to settle the matter, he still lost his former power and was reduced to a mascot-like existence. However, after the Battle of New York, everything was changed. He was brought up again when the military power that the United States was proud of was easily crushed by the Chitauri Legion. The Super Soldier 2.0 project, which had been shelved because of the incident with the abomination, was once again put on the agenda. Many people wanted General Ross to restart the program and help the United States create an army of the abominations that could be controlled. Although the abomination had caused significant damage to the economy of the United States, no one could deny his power. Compared with the abomination, the representation of the Super Soldier program, Captain America would simply become an ordinary person. Thus, Ross returned to the peak of power, and even further, became the chairman of the World Security Council. The abomination that was secretly imprisoned was also delivered to General Ross in secret. The new generation of the abomination serum project had begun. Looking at the abomination that had been injected with a large amount of inhibitors and tranquilizers, General Ross' eyes flashed with a terrifying ambition. He was not satisfied with just creating another abomination. The abomination might be powerful, but it was not perfect and could be more powerful. After all, Hulk's previous performance in the New York battle could not be considered the best. Asgard's Thor, the terrifying might of thunder, left a deep impression on General Ross. If he could incorporate the merits of the abomination and Thor, the god of thunder, what a powerful creature would be born. General Ross thought wildly in his heart, just imagining that scene, he couldn't help but excited inside. However, although General Ross was ambitious, he also knew what kind of person he could touch and what kind of person he couldn't touch. Now that Asgard's prestige was soaring, plotting Asgard's gods was just looking for death, wasn't it? Although it was regrettable, General Ross had to give up the idea of trying to strike Thor, and began to look for other targets. For instance, the video that was playing in front of him. In the video, a wave of red sun rising and expanding, the destructive power brought forward beyond the high-yield nuclear bomb. The damage caused to the Chitauri Legion was even higher than all the other superheroes put together. This was the true God on Earth, this was just the ultimate goal of General Ross. "Yibai, if your power is mine, how good would it be?" General Ross said slowly as he watched the video, his desire for Yibai's mighty power overflowed. As for why General Ross knew Yibai's identity, it was naturally because of the satellite overhead. In fact, Yibai himself did not even think about hiding his whereabouts, S.H.I.E.L.D. already knew how powerful his strength was. Yibai just hoped that no one would come to trouble him, rather than would be alarmed because of the risk of exposure. This also led to him being targeted again, and also from the military. Like General Ross, Tony also looked at Yibai in the video with a look of disbelief. Today Tony had a whim and wanted to relive the great battle 3 months ago. Then, in the video he recorded using Mark suit armor, he saw Yibai's figure. Originally, Tony just wanted to see what had entered the space channel and blocked the constant stream of Chitauri legions. That was the turning point in the Battle of New York City. If there was no Yibai blocking a steady stream of Chitauri legions, the pressure on the superheroes would be countless times greater. Even some of the weaker superheroes would have paid the price in blood. Unfortunately, so far the unnamed hero who entered the space channel and blocked the Chitauri Legion, nobody knew who it was. It was not even known whether that hero had returned from the space channel. But when Tony finally saw the true face of the unnamed hero, through many times of zooming in, it turned out to be that genius writer that was praised by countless people, Tony's friend, Yibai. He was actually the nameless hero, who had righteously rushed into the space channel and blocked off Chitauri's legions. So, he was actually incognito all along, silently guarding the city. Tony thought to himself, as a wave of admiration rose up for Yibai. Compared to a superhero like him who enjoyed public adoration, Yibai was more worthy of the name hero. Tony had a strong impulse to even want to announce this news so that Yibai could get the praise he deserved. But after deep consideration, Tony gave up on this idea. Since Yibai was not willing to reveal his superhero identity, then why should he take matters into his own hands? After all, not all superheroes, the same as Tony who enjoyed public admiration. In fact, most superheroes were anonymous, not wanting too many eyes on their lives. But this did not affect in any way the greatness that Yibai had in Tony's heart. If Yibai knew Tony's thoughts, he would have revealed an odd expression. The power of Tony's brain to make up was really great. Episode 82, General Ross Ambition, Tony's Misunderstanding, Part 2. And I wonder if Yibai has returned. I should have found this earlier. Tony thought with chagrin. He realized that there had been no news from Yibai for 3 months. It was very likely that after rushing into the spatial channel, Yibai ran into some kind of trouble. And hoping that this was not the actual situation. But after some investigation, Tony was relieved. Yibai did not lose contact, he returned to his manor at once. And these 3 months had been low-key, did not advertise even a bit of his own merits in the War of New York City. The character of this noble man immediately convinced Tony, and that was just the matter of the real chivalry. I have to go to him to talk, our relationship should be a little more intimate. Tony said to himself, the idea was difficult for him to suppress now. Even Tony himself did not know that he had now begun to admire Yibai a little. So powerful, with such noble character, as well as the hero behind the Battle of New York City. This was Tony's view of Yibai. So much so that he now wanted to undertake a pilgrimage to meet with Yibai immediately. Fanatical as a female starchaser fan of the entertainment circle. After staying in Asgard for 3 months, Yibai returned to his manor with Hela. The house had been rebuilt and was almost exactly the same as before it was destroyed. I should prepare a sumptuous dinner to celebrate that we are back where we started. Yibai said in a good mood as he took Hela's hand and looked at the familiar manor in front of him. Hela also nodded, with a smile hanging from the corner of her mouth the whole time. She was also in a good mood, and had even decided to stay here with Yibai for a while. Asgard was now on the right track, she could also clear her mind for a while, and that was why she returned to Earth with Yibai. It was more relaxing and enjoyable to her than Asgard, especially this manor. And now with the space stone in hand, no matter what happened to Asgard, she could always rush back in time. So she had no worries, and came to Earth with a relaxed mindset. I'll go get ready in my room, I hope we can have a perfect night today. Hela smiled seductively at Yibai and spoke in a rather seductive manner. Then she slowly went upstairs under Yibai's precarious gaze, intending to change her clothes. Asgard's clothing was too distinctive, and she preferred these dresses on Earth. Compared to those battle armors of Asgard, the outfits on Earth could undoubtedly make her more attractive. So very soon, Hela changed into a long black elegant dress, elegant attire, which perfectly complemented her figure. Nodding to the mirror in satisfaction, Hela walked out of the room with a flourish. Like a peacock with an unfurled wings, she showed her most beautiful side in front of Yibai. Yibai was very satisfied, so he intended to show his cooking skills. After feeding the victim enough, he was able to enjoy her slowly. But just when the atmosphere inside the manor was gradually moving toward development, unexpected guests arrived at the door. The doorbell rang outside the manor, making Yibai and Hela both grimace. Who was it, so uninvited? Did this visitor not know that they were preparing to spend a perfect night? Despite some resentment, Yibai arrived at the front door of the manor, and then saw the visitor. Tony Stark, a guest that Yibai did not expect. Tony, you should be playing with those supermodels at the party today, you shouldn't have come here to bother me. Yibai and Tony's relationship was still good, so he directly grumbling tweeted about Tony without any scruples. Tony immediately understood something, and raised an eyebrow at Yibai, showing a smile that any man understood. Soon, Yibai also led Tony to the manor. Hela had gone back to the room. Tony was also straight to the point and stated the reason for his visit. Thank you for what you've done for us, for this city, I'm proud of you, my friend. To be honest, I now have a little admiration for you, you are a real superhero. Like a fan who had just seen his idol, Tony today's enthusiasm was somewhat abnormal. Yibai looked at Tony with a question mark on his face, wondering if this Iron Man had a short circuit in his brain. The impression of Tony was a somewhat arrogant person, how could such a guy praise him like this? Your acting skills are really good, if I did not see it with my own eyes, I would be fooled by you. Don't worry, I won't talk about your identity everywhere. Tony saw Yibai's puzzled look, and thought Yibai was acting. He understood that superheroes always preferred to contribute silently and pretend to be an ordinary person in front of people. But in front of him, Tony, there was absolutely no need. At that time, when he saw Yi Bai righteously rushing into the space channel, Tony had already become a fan of Yi Bai. In Tony's eyes, this was the real heroic act. So, what the hell are you talking about? Looking at Tony, who had an excited face, Yi Bai was even more confused. What kind of stuff was this guy talking about? Well, take a look at this. Seeing that Yi Bai was still dead set on not admitting his identity, Tony was a bit helpless. He directly placed his phone in front of Yi Bai, and then Yi Bai saw his own face in the video, still so handsome. At the same time, Yi Bai also understood why Tony was so enthusiastic about him. It turned out that Tony misunderstood his action of rushing into the spatial channel to be just for defending the New York City, and purely knightly behavior. But in reality, Yi Bai just needed to vent his inner anger at that moment, so he went looking for more unlucky chidaris. In fact, I don't think I'm a hero, and I did that just to vent my anger. By the way, this video, you better not send out, I do not want too many people to pay attention to my life. Yi Bai said to Tony. He believed that Tony still had this moral integrity. Tony nodded, but misinterpreted Yi Bai's meaning. He saw Yi Bai as a noble person who did not want fame and fortune, but in fact, Yi Bai just hated trouble. Needless to say, it was a wonderful misunderstanding. The thoughts of the two people just weren't on the same channel ever, and Yi Bai didn't also bother to explain too much. However, what Yi Bai did not know was that while he and Hela were playing the music of To Make New Life, General Ross was in action. He was using his efforts to convince one after other senior government officials. And his purpose was for Yi Bai. It's not a wise decision though, maybe it will cost us a superhero. However, if it succeeds, we will make the United States great again. Standing in front of the extraordinarily unreliable president, General Ross said as such. He proposed to directly let the military arrest Yi Bai and put him at his disposal. Although doing so, he might be met with Yi Bai's fierce resistance, but who cares? Yi Bai's strength was strong, but he dared to make a move against the same fellow human beings? Superheroes do not dare to go against the government, this was something that everyone knew. Otherwise, the world's public opinion would make Yi Bai life worse than death. You are taking too much risk, you may detonate a super nuclear bomb at any time. If he resists fiercely, we can't afford the consequences of this. Mr. Unreliable, at this moment, became very reliable. He disagreed with General Ross's risky idea that he was going to try to provoke a nuclear bomb that could blow up at any time. Was he crazy? General Ross, however, was confident. His intellectual team developed a plan after a night of research. As long as Yi Bai was still a superhero, he could only let him be taken. Because superheroes were all righteous. Episode 83, General Ross Plan, an open conspiracy targeting the morality, Part 1. Maybe it sounded ironic, but that was the truth. The only weakness of superheroes was that they were on the side of justice. Justice meant that there was a bottom line. However, in real life, whoever was worse, whoever was more bottomless, would be able to win. General Ross knew that Yi Bai could easily cause damage comparable to the level of nuclear explosions, but still went to find trouble with Yi Bai. Was really a fool? No, General Ross simply took advantage of the fact in his image that Yi Bai was a superhero. His self-moral bondage would not strike against his own kind. Even if he would resist, he would also control the strength of the resistance and would not cause too serious consequences. To put it bluntly, the use of Yi Bai's inner bottom line, to restrain Yi Bai himself. You could say that General Ross was despicable, but in fact this trick worked very well usually. Against other superheroes, the military simply needed to cast a net of seemingly righteous charges, and then they could run amok. The difference only lay in whether it was worth doing or not. As the Hulk, wasn't he always chased around by General Ross? Hulk was not capable of dealing with the military? How could it be possible? If Hulk was willing, he could even destroy the entire ground forces of the United States Regiment. But the subconscious of Dr. Banner inside Hulk would be telling Hulk, do not make enemies with the state. This led to the Hulk being as if bound hands and unable to play his real strength every time when he was chased by the military. Even facing attacks, he also gave little resistance. To put it bluntly, he was still bound by the inner moral standards. But if replacing Hulk with Abomination, the military had a way? Abomination could not be morally bound, so in the eyes of the military, Abomination was 10,000 times scarier than Hulk. Because the Abomination would really exterminate their troops, that kind of monster, there was no absolute certainty that the military would not even dare to provoke. Similarly, Yi Bai was the same. The military only needed to net a seemingly righteous crime, they could go and apply for Yi Bai to be arrested. As long as there was still a bottom line in Yi Bai's heart, he still cared about the law and the country, then Yibai could only let the military act at will. Or else he had to live the same life as Hulk, and became a fugitive. However, the price the military had to pay was nothing more than some useless morality. General Ross did not need such things as morality, he only cared about his purpose. As long as the purpose would succeed, even if some sacrifices were made, it would be worth it. So after listening to General Ross recount his entire plan, Mr. Unreliable faltered. He decided to ask his intellectual group, if the plan was feasible, he would nod his head and agree to it. Soon, Mr. Unreliable got the answer from the intellectual group. From the perspective of human psychology, General Ross's plan was perfect. Even if he really ended up falling out with Yibai, he wouldn't have to pay too much, and would only need to throw out a few scapegoats to quell Yibai's anger. Of course, the premise of all this was that Yibai really was a superhero. He would have a noble character. Otherwise, all of the above was directly nullified. As for Yibai's character, from the military's analysis, it should be quite good. After all, Yibai had once selflessly struck during the Battle of New York City and broke into the belly of the Chitauri Legion all by himself. Without this incident, General Ross would not have been able to come up with such a risky plan. Let go and do it, I wish you success. In the end, Mr. Extra Unreliable made a decision and agreed to General Ross's plan. Of course, I will. We will make the United States great again, and the Starry Universe is just our final goal. General Ross said with satisfaction. He was confident that as long as he could get Yibai's blood sample, he would be able to create warriors that were 100 times more powerful than the Abomination. At that time, what was the Chitauri Legion? Asgard may not even be put in the eyes. After getting the support of Mr. Unreliable, General Ross soon left the Pentagram building. He was going to start preparing in order to launch the net against Yibai. All the conditions were ready, and now it was only necessary to harvest it. As for Yibai's feelings, who cared? If there was really an accident, at the worst, he could also lower his requirements to not take Yibai for human trial, but just asked for a little blood sample instead. Anyway, this kind of thing for General Ross was nothing, he had already lost all of moral bottom line since climbing to his position long ago. Sign-in was successful, rewarded with Avalon. As usual, every morning after Yibai woke up, the first voice he heard was the system sign-in. Today's luck was good, rewarded with a good thing. Avalon, now it's even harder for me to die. TL note, it comes from the type moon. Yibai thought with satisfaction. Avalon, the fabled scabbard of the Sword of Oath of Victory. The names derived from Celtic mythology, was the legendary domain of fairies, an unreachable utopia far from the earthly world. In a certain world, it was the strongest level of guardian treasure, and the guardian boundary opened was the highest X level that could not be broken. After it was integrated into Yibai's body, it greatly enhanced Yibai's life force and defensibility. However, this was only a bit better than nothing for Yibai, because he himself had already been immortal to an extent. Unfortunately, this Avalon could only be used by Yibai himself, otherwise it would be more useful to integrate it into Hela's body, what a pity. In fact, the vast majority of the system rewards props or templates could only be used by Yibai. When Yibai intended to get up and wash up, the phone next to his hand suddenly rang. After he took the phone up, it turned out to be a call from Tony. Tony, it's not your style to look for me so early, what's the matter? According to the impression, Tony should still be sleeping at this time, he basically had to get up in the afternoon. You're still at the manor, right? Hurry up and leave, the military wants to target you. Tony's voice was eager, obviously this matter was a little unusual. Yibai also got serious all of a sudden, and was somewhat puzzled inside. The military is targeting me? I'm not the Hulk. Before Yibai's words fell, a loud noise could be heard from outside. It was the gate of Yibai's manor, which was forcibly broken open. Then, a group of people's footsteps broke in. Combined with this message delivered by Tony, it was obvious that the military had arrived. Episode 84, General Ross Plan, an open conspiracy targeting the morality, Part 2. Yibai's face was immediately gloomy, he hated trouble. Tony on the other end of the phone was already anxious, he had even started to put on his mark armor, hoping to get to Yibai's manor quickly. In fact, the fact that the military's General Ross was going to make a move against Yibai, Tony also just learned about it. In a flash, Tony had realized the seriousness of the matter. He was not afraid that Yibai would suffer a loss, Yibai's strength he knew very well. He was afraid of Yibai's impulsive response, resulting in an irreparable situation. This was why he was so anxious to avoid the conflict as much as possible and messaged Yibai to take cover for a while, but what he didn't expect was that he was still a step behind. At the same time, Tony inwardly cursed General Ross. This stupid, if he wanted to die, he could just find a place to jump down, why to provoke Yibai? Tony knew the military's habits well and knew that it was a group of unreasonable rogues. If the military really pissed off Yibai, the consequences would be absolutely disastrous. In addition, Tony did not want Yibai to suffer any loss. Such a noble superhero, why did the military go looking for his trouble? Soon, Tony put on the Mark suit armor, and then flew directly in the direction of Yibai Manor. On the way, Tony informed the news to S.H.I.E.L.D. He now required the help of Nick Fury. On the other hand, Yibai's manor. Yibai had arrived in the living room and met the group of uninvited guests. The leader was General Ross. This old man Yibai still remembered, a total man of ambition. At this moment, General Ross had a victor's smile on the corner of his mouth and looked at Yibai with condescension. Behind him, hundreds of military personnel had surrounded the manor. After seeing Yibai come out, General Ross also came forward and stood in front of Yibai. After our military's investigation, we believe that you are suspected of stealing military secrets. Mr. Yibai, please also cooperate with us, otherwise we have the right to take you away by force. General Ross said to Yibai with the tone of a victor. Looking at this stance, it was as if he was sure of Yibai. This made Yibai frown. What an undeserved accident. What if I say no? Yibai replied with a cold face, inwardly really confused, why there were always so many idiots coming to seek death in front of him. Wasn't it good to live? What happened to all of Yibai's enemies? Was General Ross not knowing? In fact, General Ross was really not clear, not even about the Brotherhood of Mutants. That matter had been classified as top secret of S.H.I.E.L.D., and General Ross had no right to look through it. You can refuse my order, but we will enforce it by force. You can also resist, even if you escape from here, but you will become a complete criminal in the future, and there is no place for you in the vast expanse of the earth. General Ross said victoriously, as if he was not the least bit worried that Yibai would storm out. The main self-confidence of General Ross was that Yibai seemed to be a real superhero. If Yibai was a super criminal, General Ross would definitely not dare to find trouble with Yibai. In General Ross's opinion, even if Yibai eventually resisted, he would at most injure a few soldiers and then flee. By the way, you'd better cooperate with our military, or the consequences will be severe. You also don't want to see yourself lose your reputation and turn from a dazzling genius writer to a scum that everyone scorns, right? As if he didn't feel safe enough, General Ross said one more sentence to remind Yibai of the consequences of resistance. The intention was obvious, that was to threaten Yibai, better to cooperate obediently. If Yibai was really a superhero, he would really be in a desperate situation at this moment. If he resisted, he would be reduced to a criminal, losing all the glory. If he did not resist, then General Ross was even more satisfied, he could do whatever he wanted to Yibai. As much blood as he wished, he could draw as much blood as he wanted. It could be said that this was a stratagem in the open, almost insurmountable. Using social opinion as a threat to challenge the moral bottom line inside the superhero, for those true superheroes, it was an insoluble chessboard. But unfortunately, General Ross simply did not know, standing in front of him, it was not a superhero at all. At this moment, Yibai didn't even feel angry, only that the General Ross in front of him was a comical clown who was performing a stupid and clumsy show. Looking at the silent Yibai, General Ross smiled smugly and felt that Yibai had succumbed. So he waved his hand to the soldiers behind him, arrest him and bring him back. General Ross said smugly, as if he saw the day when he used Yibai's blood sample to make himself the god of the earth. With General Ross's gesture, 2 soldiers came forward and were about to detain Yibai. Just then, Yibai directly struck out with lightning, reached out and grabbed the neck of a soldier and lifted him up. The poor soldier was directly lifted by Yibai in front of his body and was futilely pulling Yibai's hand with his hands, hoping to get a few breaths of fresh air. This scene directly made the atmosphere on the field change greatly, and the situation became steeply tense. General Ross even had a sudden heart attack, he did not expect Yibai to actually resist so directly. Thinking about the energy that Yibai possessed, General Ross started to panic inside. But he forced himself to calm down and looked at Yibai with a stern voice. What do you want to do? Do you really want to make an enemy of the military? Do you really want to betray this country? Think about the consequences clearly, if you kill anyone, there will be no place for you in the whole earth. General Ross hoped to cover up his inner panic with a roar, he was the only one present who knew how terrifying Yibai was. Only Yibai's eyes remained cold, causing General Ross to gradually become uneasy. Eventually, Yibai spoke. Why do you think I'm a superhero? Looking at General Ross, who forced himself to straighten up and stare at himself, Yibai slowly said. His words caused General Ross to freeze, and a bad feeling of foreboding surged to his heart. His stratagem seemed perfect, but there was an important premise. It was that Yibai must be a superhero, must have moral standards beyond ordinary people to do so. because only then Yi-Bai had the possibility of compromise. But if Yi-Bai himself was actually a super criminal, then his blackmail would be very ridiculous. To put it bluntly, General Ross was gambling that Yi-Bai's moral standards were higher than those of ordinary people. Because superheroes were much easier to deal with than super criminals. Those super criminals, compared to the military, were even worse. Just when the atmosphere reached the freezing point, the gold and red Iron Man finally arrived on the scene. He saw at a first glance the unlucky man who was grabbed neck by Yi-Bai, and also saw Yi-Bai who had cold eyes. "Calm down, Yi-Bai, you first put the person down, we can talk properly." Tony was really flustered. He was afraid that Yi-Bai would be careless and twist the unlucky man's neck off. At the same time, Tony was also very angry inside. General Ross's tactics were too underhanded. If it were him, he would also be directly angry. The use of morality to deal with superheroes was the easiest way. Because the military did not need such things as morality. Every superhero had a connection behind his own identity. Even the civilian-born Spider-Man, does he not have Iron Man Tony behind him? And the vast majority of superpowered people without a background would become super criminals. Otherwise, why would every superhero have a large number of sworn enemies? Episode 85, Kill Him For Me. The situation on the field was very tense for a while. Tony and General Ross looked at the hapless soldier in Yi-Bai's hands. What they were most worried about right now was Yi-Bai using his strength to directly send this hapless soldier straight to God. In that case, the conflict between the two sides would be completely intensified and the situation would become irrecoverable. "Yi-Bai, brother, you have to be calm. At least the soldier in your hand is innocent, you should put him down first." Tony's voice sounded from the armor suit, reminding Yi-Bai to consider the big picture as a priority. However, after listening to Tony's words, Yi-Bai's eyes started turning colder and colder, and even his gaze towards Tony became somewhat distant. What would be the difference between advising someone to calm down and asking them to be kind? It could all be termed as a moral superiority complex. Then, Yi-Bai looked at General Ross as a mocking smile emerged from the corner of his mouth. "Is it fun to play with people? Does it make you feel smart?" It was indeed a good idea to control superheroes who would restrain themselves because of their moral standards. Even if you fail, the superheroes will display mercy because of their inner moral standards. And then you can just throw out a few scapegoats so things will be satisfactorily resolved, right? If I were a superhero, you would be invincible right now, because a superhero would not kill the general of a country. Unfortunately for you, I am not a superhero. Yi-Bai spelled out General Ross' plan, word by word. He was not an idiot, as he could infer what General Ross was relying upon as he had already seen through at first glance. He just thought it was funny. From what perspective did the old geezer judge that he was a superhero? And him being so sure made Yi-Bai feel confused for a while. After Yi-Bai killed so many mutants, there were still people who believed that he was kind. He had to say that this was magical. After hearing Yi-Bai's words, General Ross's face turned pale for a while, and he knew that the worst had already happened. He had expected Yi-Bai to possess a high moral standard, but he made a wrong bet. What was even more frightening was that Yi-Bai already had an insight into his plan from just a glance, which made General Ross's feeling of control over everything gradually disappear. Looking at General Ross, who was speechless, Yi-Bai smiled arrogantly. "Remember this person, he died because of you." With that said, Yi-Bai's hand pressed slightly and he directly squeezed the neck of the unlucky soldier. The soldier's arms and legs, which were still struggling, were now hanging down helplessly. Then, Yi-Bai directed his gaze towards General Ross again. His eyes were full of mockery and killing intent. Those who played with people's hearts would be devastated in the end after all. At the same time, Tony also reacted and directly stood between Yi-Bai and General Ross. "Enough, Yi-Bai, I beg you. You can't continue, or else there will be a big mess." Actually, Tony also wanted General Ross to die, but he couldn't let him die in front of him. The identity of General Ross made it so that he could not die at Yi-Bai's hands. Otherwise, Yi-Bai would become an enemy of the United States. Yi-Bai remained indifferent, his eyes were still firm and unwavering. It was Yi-Bai's rule not to let the enemy live. Today, no matter who came or said anything, General Ross would die and no one could change this. Just when Yi-Bai and Tony were about to have a conflict, Tony suddenly heard Nick Fury's voice. "Tony, what's the situation on your side now?" Nick Fury's voice was very anxious, as if a great disaster was approaching. Even when the Chitauri invaded the Earth, Nick Fury didn't have such an anxious attitude. "Very bad, Yi-Bai just killed a soldier, and now he wants to kill General Ross. I'm trying to stop him." Tony reported the truth. He was really thinking about how to stop Yi-Bai. Using force was certainly meaningless. Tony knew he was not Yibai's opponent. In addition, how to justify Yibai was also a problem. Tony did not blame Yibai for killing people. All he was thinking right now was to stop Yibai from becoming an enemy of the United States. That was why he informed Nick Fury about it. Don't stop it, let him do it. That bastard General Ross. F***K. You should help Yibai too, kill that son of a bitch for me. I will bear all of the consequences, and you needn't worry about the World Security Council, I will explain it to them. What you have to do now is to cooperate with Yibai to kill General Ross for me. When he said the last sentence, Nick Fury almost yelled. This made Tony almost freeze on the spot, and he even thought he was hallucinating. What? Nick Fury asked me to kill General Ross? Did I hear it correctly? Although Tony knew that General Ross and Nick Fury were at odds, Nick Fury didn't have to be so ruthless. Execute my order. Kill that bastard. I will explain to you later. Nick Fury told Tony Stark again. His attitude was very firm, and there was no chance of relaxation. Tony was confused, but had to do as he was told. And why would he refuse? Nick Fury would bear every consequence, anyway. Originally, Tony was very upset with General Ross, but he was concerned about his identity as the military general, and had been restraining himself all the time. But now, he was not afraid of his identity. Brother, I've changed my mind. Let's kill this scumbag together. After Tony made the decision, he didn't hesitate anymore and said directly to Yibai. Yibai didn't expect Tony's rapid change of attitude. General Rose's face also changed suddenly, as he didn't expect Iron Man to change his position. What the hell was going on? No one nowadays cared about his identity. Think about the consequences. I'm a military general. If you kill me, you'll be the enemy of the United States. General Ross still spoke sharply to Yibai and Tony. He now expected them to be cautious of his identity. As for achieving his goal, General Ross no longer had hope for luxury. I know who you are. You are General Ross. But I received an order from Nick Fury, and he asked me to kill you directly. If you have questions, ask Nick Fury when he goes to hell too. Tony said to General Ross, and at the same time displayed his attitude to Yibai. Although Yibai was confused, he didn't take it to heart. As long as Tony didn't stop him, everything would be alright and they would still be good friends. Only General Rose was still wondering why Nick Fury wanted Tony to kill him. In fact, the reason for this had to be mentioned early this morning. Early this morning, Nick Fury was still in a good mood. He had just made a lot of money yesterday, and then he got a call from Tony Stark early in the morning. When he learned that General Ross was actually going to arrest Yibai, Nick Fury almost froze. Then he got furious and directly smashed one of his cell phones to pieces. That bastard, goddamn thing, actually wants to move Yibai. He is looking for death. Episode 86, The Birth of Red Hulk. Which idiot gave him the courage? Can't he search for another good way to die? Bastard, beast, I should have killed him earlier. Nick Fury was furious. He didn't expect that someone would dare to make a move on Yibai. Leaving aside Yibai's terrifying strength, just the identity of him being Hela's husband, it was destined that Yibai was absolutely immovable. Doing such a thing would cause diplomatic disputes, the kind that would be unbearable. If they failed, there could even be war. No, actually slaughter would be a more suitable word instead of war. Nick Fury turned pale at the thought of these terrible consequences. So Nick Fury immediately contacted Tony and told him to leave General Ross alone, letting the old man die. Tony could even help Yibai kill the old guy. Anyway, Nick Fury had long been unhappy with General Ross. At the same time, Nick Fury also went to the Pentagon urgently. He wanted to greet the people there. It didn't matter whether General Ross was dead or not. The important thing was not to offend Yibai. To be precise, he could not afford to offend Hela and Asgard behind Yibai. This General Ross really deserved to die. Didn't he know Yibai's identity? Oh, General Ross really didn't seem to know. There was no need to talk about General Ross, even the president didn't know about it. In theory, he should have known this as he was the president. He had the right to know. But Nick Fury was really worried that he would post this news on Twitter in order to show off, so he didn't tell him. This was not impossible. In fact, the unreliable Mr. President had already tweeted about many things that could not be said on Twitter. If General Ross knew about this, he would have cried out. He didn't expect that after careful calculation for so long, he would put himself into a dead end. And it was because of the unreliable president. If Mr. President could have been more reliable, then such a thing would definitely never happen at all and he would have been directly rejected. It could only be said that General Ross deserved it, as all sorts of coincidences came together and led to the situation today. The condition of Yubei's matter was back to normal. Before General Ross came, he was confident that he could control all the situations. But in the blink of an eye, he was at a dead end. Seeing that his identity as general could not stop Yubai from killing him, General Ross was completely flustered. Finally, he gritted his teeth and pulled out a reagent tube from his pocket. Inside the reagent tube, there was a red amber-like liquid, which he poured down his throat. This was the result of his research these days. It was based on the serum of abomination and the serum of Hulk. This was the super soldier serum that he had developed. He didn't intend to drink it so early. He wanted to wait until a higher serum was developed from Yubai's blood. But now, it was too late. He had no choice but to use this serum. Soon after drinking the serum, General Ross felt a sharp pain. It seemed that the cells of the whole body were constantly dividing and regenerating at this moment. This was a kind of pain that was even more terrible than broken bones. He gritted his teeth and wanted to persevere, but he didn't succeed, and he could only let out a beast-like howl. At the same time, his body was constantly expanding, just like an inflated balloon. His muscles began to swell and his skin began to turn red. Holy shit! Tony looked at the scene in front of him and exclaimed. He didn't expect that General Ross would become like this. It was scary. Who knew what General Ross drank? At the same time, no one knew what General Ross would eventually become. But one thing that was certain was that General Ross was getting stronger and stronger in the process of mutation. Yubai watched the constant mutation of General Ross with great interest, choosing not to stop it. He wanted to see what General Ross would become in the end. However, the venue of the battle should not be here, it should be changed to a more open place. Thinking of this, Yubai suddenly rushed towards General Ross at an extremely fast speed, grabbed him, and flew directly into the sky. After finding a suitable place, Yubai threw General Ross down. He didn't want to destroy the manor he had just rebuilt because of General Ross. General Ross obviously did not have the ability to resist gravity. After being thrown by Yubai, he could only fall freely. With a loud noise, General Ross slammed on the ground in a deserted countryside. If it was the original General Ross, this free fall would be enough to end his life. But now, apparently it did not. Without making Yubai wait too long, General Ross's mutation was completed. A big guy with red skin all over and the appearance of Hulk stood on the ground and roared angrily at Yubai. This is Red Hulk. Yubai was a little surprised because he didn't expect the Red Hulk to appear. According to the original story, General Ross would eventually turn into Red Hulk, but obviously it did not happen so early. And General Ross would become Red Hulk because of gamma rays, just like the Hulk. It definitely did not happen like what Yubai saw now. He changed into the Red Hulk directly after drinking the medicine. Roar! General Ross, who turned into a Red Hulk, roared loudly at Yubai. At the same time, he kept beating his chest with his fist, as if he was challenging him. Obviously, after becoming the Red Hulk, General Ross's thought process had turned a little confused. But he clearly remembered his hatred for Yubai. In the next second, the Red Hulk squatted slightly, and then rushed towards Yubai like a cannonball out of the cannon. This was not flying, but pure jumping power. He had jumped directly and easily to a height of 300 meters and kicked a hole in the ground. Such a terrifying power was almost the same as Hulk. Hulk's ability was to smash everything under the atmosphere. It was a pity that General Ross, the Red Hulk, had an unfortunate life and encountered a monster like Yubai. Red Hulk was very powerful, but in front of the more powerful Yubai, it could only be defeated. Seeing Red Hulk jumping up from the ground, Yubai also swooped down directly from the air. He moved towards Red Hulk at a very fast speed and then stepped on the guy with one foot. The Red Hulk was hit back towards the ground at a faster speed than he was jumping up. But soon, the Red Hulk rose from the hole, without even a scratch on his body. His body was capable of resisting blows quite well. And the first thing the Red Hulk did after climbing out of the pit was yelling at Yubai. Obviously, he was not very convinced. Episode 87, Killing Red Hulk, Humans Should Learn to Fear, Part 1. Red Hulk became even more fierce when he was angry, but Yubai only felt it was noisy. In fact, the strength of the Red Hulk was not weak, he could be compared to the Hulk. In the original story, he even killed the abomination. In a sense, the Red Hulk was the Hulk's lifelong enemy. It was a pity that the Hulk vs. Red Hulk scene would never happen again, because Yubai would not let this guy live. At the same time, Tony also flew to Yubai's side and saw the Red Hulk below. This is General Ross? Tony was surprised to see this, because the red guy below looked like a certain teammate of his. Whatever, he's going to die soon, anyway. Yi-Bai said faintly in a tone full of confidence. Before Tony could react, he rushed down first. The Red Hulk was also fully alert and ready to face off. He was clenching his fists, ready to smash them down at any time. However, Yi-Bai had a whim and didn't fight the Red Hulk directly. Instead, a white light flickered in both hands, and then a rope made up of white energy was thrown directly by Yi-Bai. The rope made up of this white energy accurately bound the Red Hulk. Although the Red Hulk roared and his muscles continued to bulge, he couldn't break free from this rope. Red Hulk naturally couldn't break free, because Yi-Bai had condensed this rope with white magic. As it happened, whether it was Hulk or Abomination, or the Red Hulk in front of Yi-Bai, their biggest nemesis was magic. Like Kryptonians, these giants were guys with the least magic resistance. For a meat shield with low magic resistance, trying to break free from the shackles of white magic was simply a dream. Seeing that he had locked up the red giant, Yi-Bai directly grabbed the rope and waved it. The powerful force made the Red Hulk fly and he could no longer remain on the ground. It was like a large meteor hammer that was being waved by Yi-Bai. Only Yi-Bai had the final say about where it would fly. Yi-Bai stopped after pulling the rope a few times to make the Red Hulk fly around in a circle, and then smashed it to the ground fiercely. This was not fighting at all. This was just playing around. Although the Red Hulk screamed louder and louder, he still couldn't escape the fate of being treated as a meteor hammer. Under the control of Yi-Bai, he was constantly thrown into the sky, and then smashed down. After several repetitions, the Red Hulk remained unharmed, but his eyes were already red. Obviously the Red Hulk had become furious to the extreme. However, Yi-Bai did not care about it, he was only playing with him. If he really wanted to kill, the Red Hulk would have been killed in seconds. If you're not convinced, let's do something new. Yi-Bai said with a cold smile, and then pulled the rope in his hand, making the Red Hulk fly in front of him. And Yi-Bai was already ready. When the Red Hulk came in front of him, he punched that ugly face fiercely. The Red Hulk immediately smashed on the ground at a straight angle. This was not a fight at all, but a joke being made of the opponent. In fact, Yi-Bai also did not see the Red Hulk as an opponent. After suffering Yi-Bai's punch, he could no longer remain unharmed. His teeth were smashed in half by Yi-Bai, and his mouth was full of bloodstains. Although it looked miserable, Yi-Bai didn't have the slightest sympathy. Thinking about what this guy did before, Yi-Bai just thought that he deserved to die. It was just that Yi-Bai didn't have any interest in continuing to play, so he thought it would be better to get rid of it earlier. Thinking of this, a black flame appeared in the palm of Yi-Bai's hand, emitting a frightening aura. Facing the direction of the Red Hulk, Yi-Bai threw the flame away at will. The black flame, as if it had life, traced a strange trajectory and rushed towards the Red Hulk on its own initiative. Red Hulk obviously felt the danger coming, he kept struggling and roaring, hoping to free himself from the shackles. But the gap in absolute strength made the Red Hulk's efforts all in vain. Under the increasingly anxious eyes of the Red Hulk, the black flame finally fell on him. In the next moment, the size of the black flame suddenly soared, swallowing the entire Red Hulk, as if it had become a fireball. The moment the Red Hulk was covered with black flames, it sent out an extremely painful howl, as if he was in unimaginable pain. With the continuous burning of flames, the howl of the Red Hulk became smaller and smaller until it finally disappeared. However, within a few blinks, the huge Red Hulk was completely burned, and even the ashes were not left. The Red Hulk, lifelong enemy of Hulk, was thus dead. After the Red Hulk was dealt with, Yi-Bai's expression remained the same, but Tony's expression became a bit complicated. He still admired Yi-Bai. After all, Yi-Bai had done a heroic act. But Tony was also a little more sensible. He knew that Yi-Bai was not the kind of superhero he knew. He was more like the Punisher, the kind of superhero who used evil to control evil and violence to control violence. Under Tony's complicated eyes, Yi-Bai arrived towards him. Go back and tell Nick Fury that I don't want to see anything like this happen again. I do not need them to respect me, but at least they should learn to fear me. After speaking, Yi-Bai turned around and left, giving Tony no chance to speak. With these words, Yi-Bai once again showed his attitude to Nick Fury. He didn't need Nick Fury's respect, nor did he need Nick Fury to see himself as a superhero who could save the world. All he wanted was to make people fear him. The only way to restrain fear was to be respectful. This was the attitude that human beings should have towards the God of the world. The grace of God was like the sea, and the might of God was like hell. God's thunder and rain were gifts. Yi-Bai could occasionally give humans a little help, but humans shouldn't say that they wanted it. After all, it was not like it was Yi-Bai's home planet, it just had the same name. He believed that after the incident of the Red Hulk, those human organizations should know how to treat him. Just like the DC next door. Superman in DC was like that. Human beings treated Superman with a strong fear and respect. It was also this fear that had taught mankind how to respect Superman. Otherwise, just think about everything the Avengers would face in the future. The civilian human side even issued an agreement to control superheroes. This also directly led to the Civil War. This was human nature. If you couldn't make them afraid, they would become more greedy. Episode 88, Killing the Red Hulk, Humans Should Learn to Fear, Part 2. Yi-Bai left after killing the Red Giant, but Yi-Bai's words were imprinted in Tony's mind. Learn to fear, do you want to become a god over all beings? Tony thought in his heart. He had naturally heard Yi-Bai's message. Because human beings were always afraid of God. And Yi-Bai undoubtedly had the strength to become a god. Conquer all who were dissatisfied, this was the way of the god of the world. Jarvis, how's the data collection? Tony suddenly asked his artificial intelligence butler. Lord Yi-Bai's data has been collected, you can check it at any time, sir. Jarvis's voice emerged from inside the armor, and only Tony could hear it. I see. Transfer it to my laboratory later. Anti-God armor, it's time to start this challenge. Tony said in a complicated way and felt that he sounded very crazy. After all, if you were not crazy, how could you raise the idea of challenging God? But this was what Tony must do, he needed to possess the means of checks and balances. In the unlikely event that Yi-Bai, the god of the world, was provoked by humans, it would be an unsolvable disaster. He must be prepared, even if the probability of such an event happening was almost zero. What Tony Stark didn't know was that he had already taken the old path of a grandpa next door. Inside the Pentagon building, Nick Fury was seated seriously in front of Mr. President. Just now, Nick Fury explained Yi-Bai's identity to Mr. President. When he heard that Yi-Bai's wife was Hela, the current God King of Asgard, Mr. President almost fainted. He had just agreed to General Ross's plan. If General Ross really succeeded, then the human race would be completely destroyed. With this in mind, Mr. President asked Nick Fury. What's the outcome? It shouldn't have become the worst-case scenario. Even if Mr. President was usually unreliable, he was aware of the seriousness of the matter at this time. General Ross is dead, Yi-Bai killed him with his own hands. Nick Fury had received Tony's reply, and his face was a little complicated. But as his face was too dark, it was difficult to see anything from his appearance. Great. That guy died well. I'm relieved now. Mr. President breathed a sigh of relief. He praised God that mankind was still alive and would see the sun rise tomorrow. But soon, Mr. Unreliable revealed his original form. Originally, this kind of thing would not have happened at all. If you had just told me about Yi-Bai's true identity, I would not have agreed with General Ross' plan at all. This is all your fault, it was your concealment that killed General Ross. After confirming that he could still see the sun tomorrow, Mr. President started to use his traditional skills again. He planned to throw the responsibility of General Ross' death to Nick Fury. After listening to his words, Nick Fury simply rolled his eyes. Are you talking about human words? If you had not pitted General Ross, would he run to die early in the morning? Why not tell you the truth? Because you're not too reliable. If I told you a secret today, maybe you would tweet tomorrow and let the whole world know it. Of course, Nick Fury didn't say these words, as he was expecting Mr. President to give him a lot of money. Things have been settled, so I'll go back first. Nick Fury got up and intended to leave the place. After thinking of something, Nick Fury stopped again and instructed Mr. President. We should learn to be afraid of Yi-Bai. I hope you will remember what I said today. The voice fell, and Nick Fury left. Only Mr. President was left there muttering to himself. Asgard's God King his wife, what a lucky boy. If only I was that lucky. Unfortunately, such a big secret can't be tweeted, otherwise there would definitely be a lot of likes. By the way, I also have a beautiful daughter. I wonder if I can get her together with Yi-Bai. Forget it, I'd better send him a house someday, I believe he'll become friends with me. Maybe I can ask him to help me take a trip to Asgard. Apparently, Mr. President did not take Nick Fury's warning to heart. Instead, he was trying to figure out how he could get on good terms with Yi-Bai. Typical businessman thinking, but it was not surprising. He was a businessman himself, before he became president. And he was as always, especially unreliable. After settling the matter of the Red Hulk, Yi-Bai returned to the manor. The soldiers who followed General Ross had already evacuated. Even the corpse of the unlucky soldier was taken away by his living comrades. When Yi-Bai entered the house, he saw that Hela was preparing breakfast in an apron, just like ordinary people on Earth. Are things done? Hela asked Yi-Bai, but all of her attention was on the fried eggs in the pan. Only a little trouble, it was easily taken care of. Yi-Bai didn't take the Red Hulk's matter to heart either, it was just a small episode in his daily routine. It was not even as serious as Hela coming down the kitchen. During their 3-month stay in Asgard, he didn't know if Hela's wife power had exploded, or for some other reasons, she became obsessed with cooking. Her being obsessed with cooking was okay, but her craftsmanship was really hard to describe. The most simple fried eggs could be fried into a pile of black charcoal. This was not dark cuisine, this was death cuisine. He didn't know if it was talent. Hela's strength was so strong, but why couldn't she learn to cook even a little bit? Every time her brain said that it had learned, but then the hands were useless. With such an apprentice on the stall, Yi-Bai even wondered if his cooking skills had declined. However, Hela had indeed made progress. From the beginning, it was uneatable, and now it was particularly unpalatable. The improvement was very large. But looking at the results, Yi-Bai felt that this was even worse. If Hela made food that could not be eaten, it would be thrown away directly and would not enter Yi-Bai's stomach. But if she particularly made bad food, it would be a torture for Yi-Bai. Because Yi-Bai's senses were now extremely developed, and his sense of taste was the same. When tasting delicious food, this extremely developed taste was a kind of enjoyment. This was also why Yi-Bai was addicted to cooking. He was addicted to eating his own food. And after eating the food made by Hela, the extremely developed sense of taste brought him despair. Yi-Bai even suspected that sooner or later, he would be tortured to death by Hela's food. And then he would trigger the resurrection attribute of the ancient doomsday, and he would become immune to dark food from then on. However, there was still a long way to reach this goal. Obviously, the pain that Yi-Bai would suffer was far from enough. Soon, Hela brought her carefully fried eggs and put them on the table. Then she looked at Yi-Bai with expectant eyes, urging him to taste it quickly. Yi-Bai was flustered and wanted to refuse, but looking at Hela's expectant eyes, he couldn't say anything. He could only grit his teeth, cut out a piece of fried egg and swallow it hard. Then so salty. But no matter how bitter he felt, Yi-Bai still had to hold his smile on his face and nod to Hela. Well done, there is progress. Yesterday, the fried egg was made with devil chili sauce. Who knows why Hela added that kind of thing to make a fried egg? Episode 89, The Missiles Scour the Ground, The Iron Man Almost Died, Part 1. Scour the Ground, The Iron Man Almost Died, Part 1. Yi-Bai had lived a leisurely life since the incident with the Red Hulk. Tony Stark was busy developing the anti-God armor and kept himself buried in the laboratory, but the progress he made was very small. Nick Fury of S.H.I.E.L.D. apologized to Yi-Bai and never came again. He had already realized that Yi-Bai didn't like to be disturbed. During this period, only Thor came to see Yi-Bai once. Because his girlfriend Jane Fox went abroad to do research and Thor had nothing to do. But because of Hela, Thor didn't stay for long. He was now uncomfortable and a little intimidated by the sight of Hela. After all, Thor remembered his previous beating at Hela's hand very well. Let him be, he can do whatever he wants. Hela had said this about Thor. Asgard was now completely under her control and she didn't need Thor to take any more responsibilities. Thor could pursue a happy life according to his preferences. In fact, she didn't have much hope for this stupid brother. She just hoped that he wouldn't humiliate Asgard too much. Yi-Bai didn't think too much, because he didn't plan to intervene in the matter between the two siblings. With this time, it was better for him to plan on how to convince Hela not to cook again in the future. One kitchen god at home was enough. There was no need for another. However, it was obvious that Hela was still very enthusiastic about cooking, and he was not expecting her to give it up anytime soon. Unlike the peaceful life of Yi-Bai and Hela, the world outside was getting more and more chaotic. The impact of the Battle of the New York City was definitely more than simply destroying half of the city. This battle also announced the beginning of an era dominated by chaos. After the Battle of New York City, most ordinary people panicked. They panicked about the end of the world. This panic was very easy to understand. It was a bit similar to the trauma of the post-war period. These people panicked because they had no sense of security in their hearts. As a result, the current world order was very chaotic, and the crime rate was increasing. Especially in the United States, because this was the main battlefield and it suffered the most in the Chitari army invasion. Overnight, the number of gangsters in New York City nearly tripled. The probability of various terrible attacks also became much higher than in ordinary times. For example, in one of the news reports that Yi-Bai saw, a stadium in New York City was bombed. There were nearly 100 casualties. The scene was so tragic that there were dead bodies everywhere. If such terrorist attacks had occurred in previous years, the public opinion of the whole United States would have exploded, just like the 9/11 incident at the beginning of the century. But now after the Battle of New York City, although this terrorist attack was indeed terrible, its impact was much smaller. Perhaps this was the charm of the United States, the lantern of humanism. In the world of superheroes, being an ordinary person is like living in hell. Fortunately, I'm not an ordinary person, otherwise I won't even know how I would die. Yi-Bai looked at the TV news and shook his head. Just when Yi-Bai was about to change the news channel to watch something positive, the display on the TV suddenly changed. The original blonde hostess turned into an old man with a beard. It was worth noting that the old man wore a ring on each finger of his hands. The 10 rings. Yi-Bai became slightly interested and continued to look at the TV. Soon, the old man with 10 rings on his hand on TV called himself Mandarin. At the same time, he also announced that his organization, the 10 Rings, was responsible for the terrorist attack on the stadium. Finally, Mandarin also declared that this attack was just a warning and that they had bigger plans. Their next target was the Stark Industrial Building. After that, the image of Mandarin suddenly disappeared and the blonde hostess reappeared on the TV. Apparently, the news broadcast of this news channel was just hacked and replaced with a horrific statement from Mandarin. This is the plot of Iron Man 3. It seems interesting things are going to happen. Yi-Bai thought to himself, because he had recognized this scene, it was from Iron Man 3. However, Yi-Bai wondered if the plot of Iron Man 3 was happening so soon? Or was he the one who caused the butterfly effect? Moreover, Yi-Bai was quite sure that the Manchu who made the statement just now was definitely not an ordinary person, but had some kind of superpower. He was not an actor in the movie, but a real supervillain. It's kind of interesting, it seems the plot really has changed. Yi-Bai thought so in his heart, but he didn't feel too surprised. But he thought it was normal for the plot to change. Had the plot not changed even a little since he came to this Earth? Even if Thanos arrived on Earth tomorrow, Yi-Bai wouldn't be surprised. But did it really matter to him? The Mandarin had clearly stated that he was here to target Tony, and he had no intention to target Yi-Bai. Why would Yi-Bai go and look for trouble when he could be a spectator? So, Yi-Bai intended to be a spectator who would just watch the show. Tony also saw Mandarin's statement and learned that Stark Tower would be Mandarin's next target. However, with him being a superhero, Tony had no fear at all. In Tony's opinion, Mandarin was nothing but a terrorist, why should he be afraid? Did you forget what business Tony Stark used to do? He was the largest arms dealer in the United States. The true king of war, the merchant of death. The angry Tony was not afraid. He even held a special press conference. At the conference, not only did Tony directly insult Mandarin, and he also called the 10 Rings garbage. At the same time, he said that he was waiting for the revenge of the 10 Rings in the Stark building. Tony Stark was not afraid at all. But it turned out that Tony was too conceited. The 10 Rings was not a simple terrorist organization, but a dark organization that had been passed down for hundreds of years. The power they used even exceeded Tony's imagination. On the very day Tony declared war on Mandarin, Tony was attacked by the 10 Rings. Several ground missiles landed directly in Tony's beach villa. Even the land around the beach villa was destroyed by these missiles. Tony Stark was seriously injured, because at the critical moment of the missile attack, he put his mark armor on his assistant Pepper's body. This led to Pepper being unharmed, but Tony himself was seriously injured. Of course, this was not the key problem. The major problem was that Yi-Bai was also affected by this explosion. Episode 90, The Missiles Scour the Ground, The Iron Man Almost Died, Part 2. Yi-Bai's seaside manor was not far from Tony's villa, and the straight-line distance between them was less than 10 kilometers. He didn't know if those ground missiles were fired accidentally or intentionally, but 2 of them actually landed in Yi-Bai's manor. If it hadn't been for Yi-Bai's experience in the Battle of the New York City and the fact that he had imposed a barrier on his manor, maybe his manor would have been destroyed once again. Although the manor was intact, Yi-Bai was really pissed off. After all, who would not be angry when they were hit by a missile even though they were staying at home peacefully? That's why Yi-Bai decided to find Tony. He planned to let Tony use Jarvis to help him track down the position of Mandarin and the 10 Rings. However, as soon as he arrived, he found Pepper crying over Tony's injured body. Yi, save him, please. He is bleeding, he is going to die. Seeing Yi-Bai's arrival, Miss Pepper, who was still wearing Tony's mark armor, said to Yi-Bai with tears in her eyes. She was like a drowning man who caught the last straw. Yi-Bai came forward and looked at the heavily injured and bleeding Tony in front of him. In the violent explosion, Tony was injured, and he had lost consciousness. Now the temperature of his body was decreasing rapidly. If nothing was done to help him, Tony was really going to die very soon. This was completely different from the original plot, indicating that the future plot would be completely different. Yi-Bai glanced at the choking Pepper, crying beside Tony, and immediately knew what was going on. Don't worry, I will take care of all this. Yi-Bai stepped forward and comforted Miss Pepper. He was friends with Tony, so he was going to save him, anyway. Moreover, what Tony did directly won Yi-Bai's respect, which was also the main reason why Yi-Bai had decided to save Tony. This kind of respect had nothing to do with strength, but with character. When encountering danger, Tony did his best to protect his woman, which made Yi-Bai appreciate him very much. From his point of view, Tony did deserve his help. Save him, I trust you, please. Miss Pepper was still crying, but she had pinned all her hopes on Yi-Bai. Without hesitation, Yi-Bai directly arrived next to Tony and squatted down. Then, Yi-Bai pulled out a life potion and poured it into Tony's mouth. This life potion was something that Yi-Bai had once obtained from signing in, and it was a consumable item that could be used on other people. However, no matter whether it was for Yi-Bai or Hela, the effect of this potion was not great, so Yi-Bai had always kept it in the system storage space. He didn't expect that he would use it today. Soon after drinking the potion, Tony's injuries improved, and these wounds healed at a visible speed. This was the power of the life potion, which far exceeded all current treatments. Of course, this life potion only worked on mortals. Cough. Cough. At this moment, Tony, who was unconscious, opened his eyes after coughing twice. The first thing he saw after opening his eyes was Yi-Bai and the crying Miss Pepper. After seeing Yi-Bai, Tony knew that he was saved by Yi-Bai, so he thanked Yi-Bai with his eyes and kept this kindness in his heart. Then, he looked at Miss Pepper on the side. Don't cry. I didn't cry when I was hurt. Why are you crying? Tony pulled out a very forced smile and wiped the tears from Pepper's face with his blood-stained hands. Tony himself didn't know why. When the danger came, his first thought was not to escape, but to protect Pepper. This approach simply did not fit his playboy personality. Because Tony himself had never understood his heart at all. He was a playboy, but even he knew that it was just for fun. The only one he really liked was Pepper. This was why his first thought was to protect Pepper's life when both of them were in danger. He looked like a playboy, but in fact he was very emotional. This was Tony. This seemed ironic, but he had actually interpreted the true meaning of superheroes in his own way. In the movie, the moment he paid the price of his own life to snap his fingers, he as the Iron Man was bound to be called a true superhero. A superhero with a mortal body, but with a heart of steel, comparable to the gods. Don't be so melodramatic, you're not going to die. You better pray that this injury did not affect some of your abilities. Yi-Bai teased Tony and successfully wiped out the sad atmosphere. It was not a moment of life and death. What was this whole melodramatic atmosphere? Pepper also broke into laughter and gave Tony an angry look. The two of them finally admitted their feelings for each other after this calamity. While the three were chatting, S.H.I.E.L.D. also arrived on the scene. Nick Fury came in person and he was relieved to see that Tony was all right. Tony was one of the core members of the Avengers. If something went wrong with him, Nick Fury would be heartbroken. Then Nick Fury expressed his gratitude to Yi-Bai again, but Yi-Bai waved his hand carelessly. Before leaving, Yi-Bai said to Tony, remember to find out who attacked us. After finding out, give me their address. I will make those people pay the price for this attack. Yes, although Tony was okay, Yi-Bai wouldn't leave this matter alone anymore. Tony's revenge was Tony's business. But his manor was almost destroyed because of 2 ground missiles. If he did not retaliate, Yi-Bai would not be Yi-Bai. Tony nodded. He also wouldn't just leave this matter alone. He had almost died. If it weren't for Yi-Bai's help, he would have died already. In any case, he had to find the Black Hand behind the scenes, and he would not be Tony Stark if he didn't kill the opponent. In New York City, the hidden room of a building. A handsome white man was reporting to an old man on a video call. If an outsider was there, he would have immediately noticed that the old man in front of the white man was Mandarin. The plan has failed. Tony is not dead, Mandarin, what should we do next? The white man asked Mandarin. He looked very respectful as if he was a faithful believer in front of his god. It doesn't matter if we fail. Let's move on to the next step. Aldrich, maybe you can attack people next to Iron Man. Mandarin said to the young man named Aldrich. Aldrich nodded, having inwardly thought of a target to do so. Soon, the video call was over, and the respectful look of Aldrich disappeared. Instead, it was replaced with terrible hatred. Tony Stark, 10 years ago, you made me wait on the rooftop for a night and trampled my dignity under the soles of your feet. Now, I will return all the humiliation I have suffered 10 times, no, 100 times to you. Aldrich said with hatred. He gritted his teeth when he said the name Tony Stark. The root cause of all these things was the incident that happened 10 years ago.